Fired by email for attending her father's funeral. Holly Peterson loses everything except her integrity. But when her old team walks out in solidarity and follows her to a rival company, a storm brews in the shadows. As success rises, so does a hidden enemy bent on revenge. In a world where betrayal is business and loyalty is rare, Holly must outsmart the very forces that underestimated her. Because the river never stops and, neither does the past. The day it all began. Holly Peterson woke before dawn, the silence of her apartment pressing against her chest like an invisible weight. Her coffee brewed slowly, and she stared blankly at the Boise skyline outside her window. The city was still asleep, bathed in the soft gray light of early morning. Today was supposed to be her return to work after burying her father. 3 days of bereavement leave that felt like both a blink and a lifetime. She arrived early at the Summit Edge Logistics building. The lobby still smelled faintly of industrial cleaner, and her footsteps echoed off the polished tile as she made her way to her floor. Everything was quiet. She welcomed the calm, hoping to use the morning hours to catch up on the backlog she'd missed. Logging into her computer, she noticed a flagged email from Dan Weaver, her direct supervisor. She clicked, her eyes scanning the subject line, action required, termination notice. Her heart stumbled, clear your desk by the end of the day. Holly, human resources will handle the exit paperwork. She read it again, then again. The words swam, blurring in her vision. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Frozen in disbelief. We need people who prioritize their work. Her father's funeral, those 3 solemn days had been approved leave. She had the emails. Don himself had approved it. She reached for her phone with mechanical calmness, snapped a photo of the screen, and forwarded the email to her account. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She stood and began to pack. By the time her team started trickling in, Holly had already cleared half her desk. Tanya from accounting was the first to notice. Holly, what's happening? I've been let go, she said, voice steady. What? Why? Attending my father's funeral shows poor work priority. Tanya's mouth fell open in disbelief. Others gathered. Jason, her right-hand analyst. Veronica, the client relations manager. Ethan, Gabriella, Kayla, Diane, and Louise, the tight-knit team Holly had mentored for 5 years. Their faces transformed from confusion to outrage. Don Weaver appeared by 9:30, sharp suit, colder eyes. We need everyone back at their desks. Now. No one moved. Now, he repeated. One by one, they dispersed. Dan approached, lowering his voice. This could have been handled discreetly. Like firing me over email. He frowned. Business needs evolve. Holly, your father's passing was unfortunate. Don't finish that sentence, she warned. His jaw tightened. HR is expecting you. Don't make this harder. She picked up her box. I won't, but remember this moment. You might need to. Barbara Kent from HR was sympathetic but rehearsed. I'm sorry, Holly, I am. This wasn't how things should have happened. Holly handed over the email. Barbara read it, her lips thinning. This isn't standard. No performance warnings. No complaints. Just that. Barbara nodded. I need to speak with legal. One moment. As Holly waited, she stared out the window. The Boise River shimmered in the distance. The river moves, Holly girl, her father used to say. But the rocks stay steady. Be like the rocks. Outside, the September sun was warm. Her phone buzzed, messages from her team. This is wrong. Jason, we're behind you. Veronica, Dan's a snake. Ethan, support, loyalty. They weren't just colleagues. They were family. The phone rang. Hank Fleming, CEO of Vertex Transport Systems, Summit Edge's main competitor. They'd met at an industry summit the year before. He'd tried to recruit her. Several times. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. You deserved better. Thanks, Hank. Come to Vertex, Holly. We're expanding. Division Director. It's yours. What about my non-compete? Our lawyers say it won't hold. If it comes to it, we'll back you. I'll think about it. Later that night, she met Jason and Veronica at Riverfront Brewing. Off the radar, safe. Jason's eyes burned with fire. Dan's in over his head. He's called an emergency Saturday meeting. Nobody knows where your files are. Veronica added, the Wilson account is threatening to pull out. That sounds like a Dan problem, Holly said with a smile. What are you going to do? Jason asked. She hesitated. Then Vertex made an offer. They exchanged looks. Hope, fear, loyalty. Would they be hiring? Jason asked. She smiled again. Hypothetically, yes. Saturday morning, Holly sat across from employment attorney Vincent Torres. This is wrongful termination, he said. I'm not suing. I just want to know my rights. He reviewed the contract. This non-compete, ridiculously broad. Especially since they fired you. The courts won't enforce it. He leaned back. Go to Vertex, Holly. And if they try to fight, let them. You've got leverage. By Monday morning, she'd accepted Hank's offer. Division Director, Pacific Northwest. 40% salary increase. Bonuses. Full legal protection. Her phone buzzed. We want to come with you. Veronica, we already applied. Gabrielle, all 7. Holly looked around the open concept office of Vertex. Clean, bright, collaborative. It wasn't just a new beginning. It was a declaration. She opened her inbox, typed a message, subject, recommendation, former team members. These are the finest logistics professionals I've ever worked with. Hiring them will strengthen Vertex and weaken the competition. She hit send. The river outside flowed steadily, and Holly, the rock steady and unshaken, was ready to reshape the current. Holly, we need to talk. Her voice had that practiced calm that never truly masked tension. Holly stood in her new Vertex office, coffee in hand, sunlight bathing her desk. Good morning, Paula. What can I do for you? I've just received 7 resignation letters, all from your former team. Effective immediately. Holly said nothing. Care to explain? She exhaled slowly. I don't work for Summit Edge anymore. Their career decisions are theirs. They're all going to Vertex, Paula said flatly. You just started as division director. This doesn't look coincidental. People make choices, Paula. Maybe you should ask Dan why Summit Edge's top-performing team is walking out en masse. There was a beat of silence. This is about your termination, isn't it? Paula asked. I've reviewed the situation. Dan didn't consult me. I would never have approved it. Holly's voice stayed neutral. Why wasn't the regional manager involved in firing a team lead? Dawn said it was urgent. Something about a performance issue during a critical operations window. I was at the Seattle conference. I trusted his judgment. That was a mistake. Yes, Holly said. It was. Paula's tone softened. Look, Holly, I'm prepared to offer you the job back. A 10% raise. A formal apology. We need your expertise. The Wilson account is threatening to walk. I appreciate the offer, Paula, but I've accepted another position. We'll match their pay. Add 15%. It's not about money. Then what would it take? Time travel, Holly said. To undo the damage when Summit Edge punished me for grieving my father. Silence again. I have to go. Today's my first day. Your non-compete, have your legal team contact mine. They'll be happy to share what Idaho law says about wrongful terminations. At Vertex, Hank Fleming greeted her in the lobby with a beaming grin. We're already scheduling interviews for your team. Their resumes are impressive. Thank you, Hank. You brought us gold, Holly. Summit Edge's mistake is Vertex's gain. 2 days later, Barbara Kent called. Her voice was quiet, wary. I shouldn't be telling you this, but Don has been placed on administrative leave. Paula launched an internal investigation, bereavement, time-off practices. The board's involved. That's good to hear, Holly replied. They're reviewing all terminations from the last year. Your case has triggered a full policy audit. By Friday, all 7 of Holly's former colleagues had received formal offers from Vertex. They accepted immediately. They celebrated over dinner. To new beginnings, Veronica toasted. And to Holly, Jason added, who showed us what leadership looks like. The following week, Holly received a settlement letter from Summit Edge, acknowledging wrongful termination. She accepted. Not for the money, for the acknowledgement. That same day, the Wilson account officially transferred to Vertex. They followed. The people, not the brand, Ethan remarked. Holly thought of her father. The river moves, but the rocks stay steady. 3 months passed. Vertex's Pacific Northwest division boomed to 30% growth. 3 new clients. Reduced costs by 22%. Hank beamed after Holly's quarterly report. You've exceeded every metric. My team deserves the credit. They ambushed her later with a cake. It's our Independence Day, Jason joked, her heart swelled. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. Later, a news alert buzzed on her phone. Summit Edge announces restructuring amid client exodus. Hernandez's contract's gone too, Ethan said. 20% of their revenue. Dan's out permanently, Louise added. Office cleared. Security escorted. Holly felt no triumph. Only justice. Summit Edge hadn't collapsed because they left. It collapsed because it had been rotting from the inside. To Summit Edge, she said, raising her glass. May they learn that a company's strength is how it treats its people. 6 months later, Paula invited her to lunch. Holly hesitated, then agreed. They met at a restaurant by the Boise River. I wanted to say sorry. Properly, Paula said. You weren't the one who hit send. But I built the culture that allowed it. She explained how Summit Edge imploded. How Meridian Shipping bought them out for a fraction of their worth. And Dan blacklisted. You became a cautionary tale for the industry. I never named names. I just told the truth. That was enough. Paula sighed. Was it worth it? Walking away instead of fighting. Holly thought of her team. Of her father. Of the river. Double quotes, yes. A year after that fateful email, Holly stood in executive boardroom. She was now executive vice president of operations for the entire Northwest region. Her division had become the blueprint for others. Each team member had been promoted. Jason led his division. Veronica transformed client relations. The others were flourishing. That evening, a package arrived at her apartment. A small box? Inside her old cactus. Slightly larger, still thriving. A note, rescued this from your desk. Thought you might want it back. Summit Edge closes for good next week. Barbara Kenshi placed the cactus by her window. Sunlight kissed its green tips. Later, she walked along the Boise River. Water rushed, steady and calm. You were right, Dad, she whispered. Sometimes the best revenge is rebuilding. 6 weeks into her promotion to executive vice president, Holly Peterson received a message that unsettled her more than she cared to admit. From Anonymous at protonmail.com. Subject. Summit Edge's ghost isn't done with you. Body, you think you've won, but the shadow agreement lives. Ask your new coup why the Hernandez contract is in jeopardy. Trust no one. She stared at the email in disbelief, reading it 3 times. The sender was masked. The implication was more than unsettling, it was a threat, and it referenced something only someone deep inside the logistics industry would understand. A cold chill moved through her. The Hernandez account had just fully transitioned to after months of negotiation, and it was one of their largest West Coast clients. Losing it would hit the division's momentum hard. Holly immediately scheduled a confidential call with Hank Fleming. Hank, I need to ask. Has there been any movement or unease with Hernandez Shipping? He hesitated. There's something. Our new coup, Randall Pierce, took a call directly from their VP of operations. They expressed concerns about data security. That's odd, Holly said, her instincts flaring. I've never had a single issue with their team. It may be nothing, Hank offered. But let's dig in. Quietly. That evening, she met Jason for dinner. The restaurant overlooked the river, its current steady under the soft glow of streetlights. He was now heading a logistics unit in Portland but visited Boise regularly. You're distracted, he said over their second round of drinks. Someone's trying to undermine us, possibly from inside. From Summit Edge, he asked, brows furrowed. Or someone who benefited from it, or fears what we've built. Jason reached across the table, gently brushing his fingers over hers. Whatever it is, we'll get ahead of it. Together. The warmth in his touch lingered. It wasn't the first time she noticed how his loyalty had slowly turned more personal, and she wasn't resisting it anymore. The next day, Holly met with Randall Pierce, the newly hired coup. He had an impeccable resume, crisp suits, and a smile that rarely reached his eyes. I wanted to check in about Hernandez, she said casually. He looked up, surprised. Oh, just a minor concern. They mentioned that a confidential proposal was leaked. We're investigating. Do you have details? Unfortunately, not much. They said the format matched internal Vertex templates. Her stomach nodded. That was her team's format. The template was one she'd personally refined at Summit Edge and carried over to Vertex. If someone was copying them, it had to be from inside. Thanks, Randall, she said coolly. Keep me posted. But something didn't sit right. Later that week, Veronica stormed into Holly's office. You're not going to believe this, she said, slamming a folder onto her desk. I was reviewing metadata logs from our proposal archives. There's been unauthorized access. Passwords reset. Internal files downloaded. By who? Veronica hesitated. The access codes trace back to Randall's executive login, but that makes no sense. Why would the coup spy on proposal files and forward them to? She trailed off. Unless he's working with someone else. That night, Holly couldn't sleep. The river outside her window murmured as if whispering warning and wisdom. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. The rock stays steady while the river rushes past. She needed to be steady. The next morning, she called Barbara Kent. You once said Dan's removal had layers. Anything I should know about Randall Pierce? Barbara hesitated. Randall was being considered for a coup role at Summit Edge right before the acquisition. Dan vouched for him. He was never officially hired, but they had signed a shadow agreement. If Summit Edge survived, he'd come on board. Holly went still. What if he came on board? Just a little later. The trap had been set years ago. Randall hadn't left Summit Edge's ashes behind. He'd followed Holly to Vertex, embedded himself as a savior, and was now trying to sabotage them from within. Why? To shift Vertex's direction, or for personal vengeance. She didn't know yet. By Friday, Holly had gathered the evidence, digital logs, email trails, a copied NDA template bearing Randall's e-signature from months prior at Summit Edge. Jason, Veronica, and Ethan sat with her in the boardroom. We confront Hank tomorrow, she said, and if we're right, we're cutting out the infection. Jason leaned in. And what happens if he tries to take you down with him? She met his eyes. Then we remind him, the river rushes, but the rocks remain. The next morning, Holly stood before Hank Fleming with her team at her side. The evidence against Randall Pierce was compiled into a single, concise document: metadata logs, proposal leak trails, email timestamps, and a digital fingerprint linking Randall directly to Summit Edge's final hours. Hank looked up from the packet, his expression stormy. You're certain this isn't a mistake? Not a chance, Holly said. He was part of Summit Edge's backup plan. When they crumbled, he found another way in. Through us. Jason added, he's been leaking proposal formats and damaging our relationships. The Hernandez scare was just the beginning. Hank leaned back slowly. Do you think he's working alone? Unlikely, Holly replied. But even if he is, the intent is sabotage. Hank tapped the table. I'll handle this. Randall's out. And if anyone else is part of it, we root them out. Within an hour, security escorted Randall out of the building. He didn't speak, but the hatred in his eyes told Holly everything. He wasn't done. That night, Holly returned home and sat at her father's old writing desk. There, in the drawer, was the last letter he ever wrote her, unfinished, torn from a notepad. She'd never opened it until now. Holly girl, you've always been the rock, even when you didn't know it. People will try to break you, but they can't bend what doesn't move. Let them crash, let them whirl. You stay steady, and you'll build something they'll never touch. Her hands trembled. She whispered, I hope I've made you proud. 3 months later, Vertex had rebounded. Hernandez not only renewed their contract but also doubled it. 3 more ex-Summit Edge clients followed suit. Jason leaned on Holly's office doorway. Hernandez is locked in. Contract signed. And we just got invited to bid for the international expansion segment. She smiled. I couldn't have done this without you. He stepped closer. I think I couldn't have done this without you. He kissed her, slow, certain, like the kind of certainty that only builds after years of fighting the same wars together. On the anniversary of her firing from Summit Edge, Holly hosted a leadership panel at the Boise Logistics Conference. The topic, turning crisis into culture. After her keynote, a woman approached her, tentative but familiar. Barbara Kent, she said. From HR. Holly's eyes lit up. I heard Summit Edge finally closed. You okay? Barbara nodded. I'm good. I joined Meridian's ethics team. We've rebuilt a better environment. Inspired, frankly, by what you did. They hugged. Old enemies transformed by honesty and time. That night, Holly returned to the river. It was cooler now, the autumn wind stirring the surface. She brought the cactus from her old desk, the one Barbara had rescued on, placed it near a rock where the water lapped gently. Dad, she whispered. We stayed steady, and it worked. Her phone buzzed. From Anonymous at protonmail.com. Subject, you think it's over? Body, the river never stops, and neither do I. She stared at the message, then deleted it. The river would always rush, but she had become the rock. And whatever storm came next, she was ready.